There is power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. There is power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power.
congregation prayer, I just would like to say thank you to Christian worship team, Timor, our Baptist Church, Aruko. Thank you so much for leading all the congregation, singing and praises God together wonderfully. May God bless all the team members. Let us look to the Lord in prayer. Our gracious, loving, and living Heavenly Father, we come before the throne of grace with thanksgiving, because Lord, you are so kind to us, you are faithful to us. We are nobody, but Lord, you make us somebody because of your love.
As the eagle has soared. resurrection stage story. When I'm asked what I think, did Jesus live or die? Well, I just stand more to tell them what I think I was. Well, you can go down to the manger and I'm gonna Bethlehem, try to find a baby Jesus, but there won't be lying there. Won't be a dollar most out to a hill called Calvary. Look for the Lord, but you won't find him hanging on a tree. You can go down to a garden where you'll see your own too. Take a look inside, and all you find is just an empty room. Jesus died, but he's not dead, and he's coming one more time. He's alive, he's alive, he's alive. Amen. Well, people say that they're to find the Lord. Right up there, just like the world, stand back and greedy signs. Praise the Lord, the truth does not depend upon their lies. Oh, you can go down to the manger and Mount Bethlehem, try to find a baby Jesus, but it won't be lying there. Won't be out on the roadside to a hill called Calvary. Look for the Lord, but you won't find him hanging on a tree. Well, you can go down to the garden where you'll see your own too. Take a look inside, and all you find is just an empty room. Jesus died, but he's not dead, and he's coming one more time. He's alive, he's alive, he's alive. We'll come down to a manger in a town called Bethlehem. Try to find a baby Jesus, but it won't be lying there. Won't be a dollar most out to a hill called Calvary. Look for the Lord, but you won't find him hanging on a tree. Go down to the garden where you'll see your own too. Take a look inside, and all you find is just an empty room. Jesus died, but he's not dead, and he's coming one more time. He's alive, he's alive, he's alive. Jesus died, but he's not dead, and he's coming one more time. He's alive, he's alive, he's alive. He's alive, he's alive, he's alive.
This morning, the passage which I'm going to read out is chosen out from Psalms, Book of Psalms, chapter 78, verses 70 to 72. Chapter 78, verses 70 to 72. I'll be reading out from NKJV. He also chose David his servant and took him from the sheepfold. From following the ewes that had young, he brought him. The shepherd Jacob his place, and Israel his inheritance. So he shepherded them according to the integrity of his heart, and guided them by the skillfulness of his hands. This is the living word of God. Thank you.
Wonderful greetings from Utah Baptist Churches Association. This morning, the scripture which I'm going to read is taken out from Matthew chapter 9, verse 35 to 38. Matthew chapter 9, verse 35 through 38. I'm reading from NIV. Please follow the version you have. 35. Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues proclaiming the good news of the kingdom and healing every disease and sickness. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them, because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field." May the good Lord bless us through the hearing of his word. Thank you.
I also bring greetings from the families of all the missionaries in Himalayas and beyond. I'll be sharing on the topic facing the challenges together. One mission, one movement, facing the challenges together. If you think of Nagaland, I think we've come a long way. Very soon, I think we'll be celebrating our 150 years of our Christianity. I think even my own church, this year we are celebrating our 100 years of Christianity. And I think if you look at the mission, we have achieved so much. But again, today if you look at the global mission, I think we still have lots to do it. And I'm sure we have done so much, but today I think we still need to do much. I think we need to think of the next level, the next step of getting involved into the mission world today. There are some of the challenges I'd like to share with you this morning. Of course, in line with the speaker, especially our lawyer, she has really shared that situation. So I also would like to go along with that and like to share that today we have so many challenges in the mission field. And it's not only the missionaries, but it also there need to be a cooperation between the church and the missionaries. And there are a lot of challenges that we need to work together. And that's where I would like to focus. Stories, I think there are a lot of missionaries who will be sharing their stories. So I would like to focus on some of those challenges today at present we are facing and we will continue to face. But how do we overcome that? How do we effectively work in that kind of a situation? That's where I would like to base my sharing. If I look at the mission work, I think it's almost, we can say it's like parenting. It's parenting. Mission work is a parenting. But parenting, it needs both the husband and wife to really, to bring a healthy children. And therefore, if you think of parenting, if today we think of mission, I think it's a church and mission. They are like husband and wife. And therefore, today, if we think of the mission, I think it's important that the role of the church and the role of the mission, they need to come together. And then only then we will have a healthy mission, a healthy church, a healthy work that will take place today in the mission field. Another context. Today, if you look at the mission field, it's just like a battlefield. Before I become a missionary in the Himalayas, before I worked there, I was in Myanmar and the Thai border, and I lived with those people. And it's just in the border. It's in the battlefield, and I've seen many of them were injured. And it's interestingly because of the landmine. If they are not careful in their walk, if they go in the wrong direction, and that's where they land up, putting the leg on the landmine and they have been blasted. I think mission field sometimes it's like a landmine. That we need to be careful. And we need to really walk in the right direction, in the right way. I think there's so much restriction today, so much situation that we need to be careful. If we are not careful as a missionary or even as a church, as we get involved in the mission, we may end up blasting today in the mission field. I want you to imagine today if we talk of mission field. As our lawyer, she has explained about the anti-conversion bill. But today if you look at the mission field, there are so many kind of restrictions, from anti-conversion bill and even to the point of religious restriction and social restriction, cultural restriction, and crisis even in terms of resources. There are so many restrictions today in our context, today in the mission context. And every mission field have a different situation, different context, different situation. And therefore it's important to really understand the situation, all those restrictions as we get involved today in the mission work. And that includes not only the missionaries, but I think it includes even the sending body, that we need to study, we need to be aware of the restriction, and we need to get involved today in this mission work. I say mission enterprise in crisis. I was just thinking about, when you talk about the mission enterprises, it's the church and the missionaries. Of course, by God's grace, we are still doing well. But today, if you look at the global mission, the church, hardly we see very few people. The soldiers of Christ are disappearing today in the church. And at the same time, today there is challenges that the missionaries are facing. I'm trying to say that if the church is not strong, the mission cannot be strong. And therefore, in order our mission to be effective, it's also important that the sending body, the church, also need to be strong. And therefore, these two enterprises, the church and the mission, they are closely connected, and they are just like husband and wife. And all of us, we need to be in the same pace today to bring changes in our mission world. Okay, coming back to the text. Let's come back to the text. Matthew chapter 9, verse 35 to 38. If you look the passage above this, we can see Jesus was ministering to the people along with the disciple. And not only ministering to the people, but we also see that he was recruiting more followers. And after this passage, we can also see that Jesus deployed those workers and they let them get involved into the work. But in between, we can see this passage, and we can see that as Jesus goes around, he see the people, he saw the crowd, and he felt compassion for them because they were helpless. They were confused. They were in need of help. And that's where Jesus said, the harvest is plenty, but the workers are few. I believe it's not only the number that Jesus is talking about here, but it's not the quantity, but also the quality. When you talk about the workers, it's both the quality as well as the quantity. So I would like to talk from this context. the vision for the harvest and the workers for the harvest and the ministry for the harvest. Today, I think it's so important that as we get involved into the mission world, we need to be very clear of the vision. I believe that as an individual, as a church, as an organization, God gives us the vision, and we know that the vision comes from God. If you look in Colossians chapter 1, 16 to 18, we can also understand that the vision comes from God. He is the Lord of the vision. And as we seek Him, we know that He will direct us, He will show us, He will lead us. And interestingly, if you look even in the life of Paul, based on Acts chapter 26, verse 19, Paul talks about the heavenly vision. I think that's very interesting. Because today, if you look at the vision, today it could be, God has given certain individual a personal vision, and God has used them. But I think it's important that they need to expand their vision. And maybe we can also say that, let's say that's a personal vision, but we can also say that today the church or the organization, God has given them a corporate vision. But I think it's important that the corporate vision also needs to be expanded. And I think we need to come to where Paul talks about the heavenly vision, going beyond the personal vision, going beyond this corporate vision. I think today we need to focus on the heavenly vision, which we are solely sold to God, which we are totally committed, surrendering everything to the hand of God. Because sometimes today we see, even in the mission field, even in the church, instead of discerning, instead of seeking God's vision, sometimes, we end up being the ownership. We focus being the ownership of a mission work or mission place, rather than focusing the God-given vision to the church, to the organization, and then come back to the Paul's vision, which we know that it's a heavenly vision, which is beyond personal vision, which is beyond this corporate vision. I think that's where when we come to that point, I think that's where we can make a greater impact. Because as I look at NMM, the world is our mission field. It's a big vision. And I believe it's a shared vision. It's almost like the heavenly vision as Paul is talking about. And today, if we have to make impact, I think there are a lot of challenges that we need to work together. Later on, we'll be talking about teamwork, partnership, holistic approach. There are so many ways that we need to work together in order to make a greater impact today in the mission world. Because today, if you look at the mission trend, it says everywhere to everywhere. Today, it's not the ways that we need, but today the ways need the ease. Today, everywhere we go, there is a need of mission. And today we see that we are also sending many of our people even outside, overseas. And today we see that there are lots of Asians now sending to Arab countries. And today, even if we look around in our own surrounding, there are a lot of work that we need to do. So today's mission is everywhere to everywhere. Everyone needs to get involved into the mission world. I say visionaries. God is the one that gives us the vision. And of course, it could be a personal vision, it could be a corporate vision. But I think it's important that you and I need to know our own calling. We need to know where God has called us. Because today, even in the mission field today, there are so many people who are working in the mission field. But today, many of them are not very sure of the calling, whether they are really called as missionaries. Of course, there are some people who are there for some few years, or maybe for some time. But the question is, I think it's most important, the important part is, are we really called for the mission? Because I believe that for some of us specifically, God has called us, maybe in the mission world, maybe in the teaching world, or in the pastoral world, or in different ministries. But fortunately or unfortunately, today, there are so many mission workers, I'm talking to my co-workers, that it's important that we need to discern God's vision. Because many a time, many of us fail to discern the call of God in our life. And sometimes if we are not sure of where we are called, then we can become even incompetent in our ministry. And not only that, I think it's important that, when God calls us, when God gives us vision, I think it's also important that we need to come up with setting goals, strategies, and seeking God to help us to fulfill the vision that God has given to us. And of course, it's also important that, sometimes it could be possible that we are focused so much only within our own limited areas, maybe our own church, our own mission. I think it's important that today, if we need to make an impact, greater impact, I think we need to move beyond our own mission field, our own organization. I think today, I'll be coming to that, but today I think there is a lot of need of partnership, networking, and today to make more greater impact today in this mission work. And that's only possible when we move from those limited vision, when we are not stuck with the corporate vision, when we are not stuck with our personal vision, but when we move towards the heavenly vision that Paul talks about. I think that's where I think you and I can make a difference in the mission world today. Because there are so many different kind of missions, there are so many different organizations, there are so many challenges, there are so many areas that we alone, our own strategy is not enough. That we need the help of each other. There need to be some kind of a collaboration. Today I think we need each other to make a greater impact today in this situation. And coming back to the worker for the harvest, I think when I think about the harvest, I think it's not only about the missionaries. Of course, yes, as a missionary we are, let's say as a mission workers, we are professional, specific call for the mission. But I believe the church, God has called even the church also to get involved into the mission. So I say the general workers, general call for mission, because we are all called to witness the gospel. But some of us are specific. God has called us to get involved into help into the work of the mission. But I think it's important that today the church and the missionary need to understand that we are all called for the mission, but our roles could be different. There are so much important roles that the church need to play today in the mission work. Of course, the church is doing so much. I know the church is doing so much, but I think we need to do more than this, which I will come later on. Coming back to that, when we think of the role of the missionaries and the church, I think it's also important that orientation are also so important today in the mission field. It doesn't matter whether you are degree, high qualified. Once you are in the mission field, you are still fresh. I've seen a lot of theologically degree people who have studied, but when they come, they have to start from zero. And so it's so important that, it's so important that I think we need to go through some basic orientation. I think we can see that even in the scripture, that Luke 9:1-7, Luke 10:1-2, we see that first Jesus was given intensively orientation to his 12 disciples. But later on, he also gave a kind of a general orientation to those 70 workers, the followers of Jesus. Yes, I think for those as a missionary, we need a little bit long term, maybe 3 months, 6 months, whatever orientation, or even one, if you can't, at least 1 month orientation. There are so many basic truths that we need to learn, especially as I said, even our lawyer, she was sharing about the context, how we need to know the context. And those are also important to learn before we even go to the field. And there are so many others. But at the same time, today, there are also so many missions. So many churches are involved in different kind of missions. But many times, without knowing much about the situation, they will come to the mission field, different group, different people, but no orientation. Sometimes we need the church, but I think it needs a basic orientation. If not, sometimes instead of helping the situation, sometimes the situation can even get worse. And therefore, I think it is also so important that orientation, some basic orientation are so important. Even today, even for the church who are coming for a short-term mission, maybe 3 days, 1 week, or even longer than that, it's important that some kind of basic orientation today it is needed, because we know that Rome was not built in a day, but it takes only a day to destroy it. Sometimes the missionary will be doing so many things, trying to be careful and trying to work, trying to help the mission carefully, but sometimes, as a short-term mission comes in, we do in our Naga style, but sometimes, every time the Naga style doesn't work in other contexts. So I think that's how we need to really consult, and we need to really have some basic orientation as we get involved into the mission. And I also believe that missionary care are also so important. I'm talking about mentoring our missionaries. Today, the church really have to mentor, mentor, like Barnabas' principle. Barnabas mentor Paul. We need to back up our missionaries. We need to empower them. Because missionaries, they may go through so many challenges and difficulties. And sometimes they may even end up fall into a trap or doing the wrong thing. But it's important that we need to back them up. But it could be sometimes there's a possibility of, instead of backing them up, we may end up finding the fault, and we may end up, there is a possibility, and there has been cases. However, I think it's important that the role of the sponsoring body, it's so crucial today, because your encouragement, just your backup, your prayer, or sometimes training. I think there are so many ways that today the missionary needs missionary care. And I believe that as we go forward, we need to also strengthen that area, so that the missionaries, of course, should be accountable to the sponsoring body. But at the same time, the mission bodies need to be the mentoring, the coaching, and so that missionary will continue to work in effectively into the mission field. Okay. Sorry. Coming back to some of the challenges that today we face, even in the mission field. I said effective and ineffective. So I'm trying to say that, of course, not everyone is ineffective, not everyone is effective. So there is always a challenges that today we face in the mission field. I start with a quote: many start well, but few finish well. All of us, every missionary, they come with all excitement. But when they slowly, as they come with excitement, and they face a lot of challenges, and if, like I said, first, if they really don't know, if they're not very sure of the calling, there is a possibility, uncertainty of their own calling, there is a possibility of collapsing. So I think it's important that every missionary, it's also important that we need to be certain of our call as we venture into the mission field. Another challenging factor could be leadership challenges. I think I said the 5 C's. There are areas that as a missionaries, we need to develop our leadership. Calling, character, competence, community that we target, Christ. The 5 C's. As a missionaries, if we can develop that 5 C's, the quality of leadership, calling, character, competence, or skills, and then community and the Christ. I think it's so important that we need to continue to develop our quality, because in the mission field, even today in the Himalayas, we are also seeing that our own local missionaries are coming up, and we exist in those areas to be kind of a supplement and complement. And today there are some areas that which we don't need to do it, but the local people can do it, and we can only help from the other areas where they are weak, and we can be a supplement and complement today in that mission work, because a lot of the work can be done by the local. Entrust them to do that work, because if we keep on doing those work, there will be a conflict today even in the mission field. And therefore, I think it is also important that today even the missionaries need to know our role, and we need to improve our capability, improve our potential. We need to continue to grow so that we can still be relevant today into the mission work. Because at one time, 20 years ago, they said, please come. But today, some of the local people are saying, we don't need. In some areas, we don't need now. We don't need missionary. It's interesting. There are many reasons. Because they also have come up age. But again, there is also a new batch of missionary coming in. And sometimes they can be competent and incompetent. And there are so many conflicts that also taking place. And today, I think even the sending body, we need to really think as we send missionary, it's important to see the situation. What are the role of the missionaries in those specific fields need to be considered before we launch into the mission world. And not only that, understanding the culture is so important, because many times I think Nagas, we are so open, and of course we can adapt to any culture, but sometimes there is always a possibility of imposing our own culture into that mission world. So I think it's important that in the culture is so important, and it takes time to understand the culture, and that's where I'm also thinking about when we come for a short-term mission. It's always important that we need to we need to have some consultation or basic orientation with the missionaries, get some information, know where we need to be careful, but not just come and get involved into the mission. I think we need to understand the culture, and we need to work among those people. Of course, there are some areas like us in the mission field, we're not fighting with flesh and blood. There are so many challenges. Every look and corner you will see temple, you can see temple in their own house, you can see the work of the evil. And therefore it's a challenging that every missionary need to be prayerful. Every missionary need to be back up from the sponsoring body for prayer to back them up. Because there are so many challenges that we face, especially with spiritual operation that may come in any kind of form. And I think as a missionary, and I think as a sponsoring body, we need to be concerned of the spiritual battle that is taking place in the mission field. And one very important area, discipleship. I think today we need to develop this area of discipleship. What we learn here, we are applying that even to the mission field. But today, as we also see in the mission field, that churches which are not well discipled, they are struggling. And churches which are being discipled, they are healthy. I think it's also important that we need to really think on this area. I believe that it's not only the mission in the mission field, the missionaries, but today I think we need to also develop a strong discipleship today in our context. And setting goals are important. I say SMART because it's sustainable, measurable, attainable, reliable, time-bound. SMART. So I think it's important that God give us a vision. God has entrusted us for the work in our respective places, but it's also important that we need to plan, we need to set goals. And along with the sponsoring bodies, then only we can make a difference as an effective worker today in the mission field. Missionary care. Of course, there are some churches, some sponsoring body, they are doing so well. But still there are some of the church and some of the organization we still need to improve, especially in the area of missionary care. Ministry for the harvest. I talk about the vision. I'm talking about the workers. I think the last part I will talk on the ministry for the harvest. I'd like to talk only on the three areas. I think as a missionaries, especially in the mission field, we know that the most important role is to go and make disciples. But that's a challenge for many of our missionaries, and we need to develop this area. And at the same time, I think teamwork and partnership also plays a very important role today in our mission work, and the holistic approach. Coming back to the discipleship model, just to remind us, I'm just taking the model of Jesus. Jesus' model of disciple is very intentional, subsequential, it's very systematic. We can see in the life of Jesus. It's a come and see. It's the first stage of attraction and evangelism. The next step, he talks about follow me. It's a phase of developing some basic Christian habits. The third step could be with me. It's a deployment, sending them to lead in the ministry. Let them get involved into the ministry. Of course, the fourth part is remain in me. We need to continue to grow intentionally in every aspect of our ministry. I think this is a very crucial role where we need to develop systematically the discipleship model and how we can use that material in order to help today in the mission field. And I think today I believe that we are involved in discipleship, but I think our discipleship is very general. I think we need to develop a very systematic, very specific model that we can use today in our discipleship. And I think today we need that also in the mission field, because we have a very weak method or model of discipleship. And that's why today we are also finding a lot of problem, especially handling and helping today our churches, our mission churches. And so it's so important that I believe that, if we are good in discipleship, then we'll have a good leadership. Sometimes we have so much focus on conversion, membership, and slowly it goes to leadership. But I think today it's so important that, Jesus talks about go and make disciples. But sometimes the focus is on conversion, membership, leadership. But today, the crucial ingredients today, what the church needs in the mission field is discipleship. If we have a strong discipleship, automatically we'll have a good leadership. Today, I think the challenges of leadership is because of the weak discipleship. And I believe that we need to work on this even from the sponsoring body and even from the mission field. And another area is struggling with team alignment. We know that church is a teamwork. We know that mission is a teamwork. It says it takes a team to make a dream work. It takes a team to make a dream work. I think teamwork is so crucial today. I'm always reminded of a bird flying together. It says that when it flies alone, it's only one person powerful. But when they fly together, it's 71% powerful. The power of teamwork. I think today that is so crucial. And when you say team, I think the team, they have a clear goal. They have a clear direction, and they all move towards fulfilling that goal. It's a team. So I think today when we think of team, I think it's important that teamwork, it needs clear direction, commitment, coordination, because everyone, again, we are unique. We are all unique, and everyone is needed today in a teamwork. But today in our teamwork, I think the most important thing that I find is team spirit. Trust and respect is the key in teamwork. Today, if there is no trust between the co-workers in the mission field, today if there is no trust and respect today, the sending bodies and mission workers, the mission field will not go long. The mission field will be paralyzed. We are all co-workers in Christ. Trust and respect is so crucial today in our teamwork. And it's so important that we need to develop this team spirit, winning attitude, loyalty, trust, and respect are so crucial today in our teamwork. If we have that strong teamwork, I think we can do much more better than what we are doing today. And finally, not the last, but next to last, partnership. I think partnership also is so crucial. From teamwork, it's important that we need to think of partnership. Of course, when you think of partnership, we are talking about synergy. We are talking about alliance. We are talking about collaboration of different mission agencies working together. I know it's complicated. As NMM, they know it's complicated. It involves a lot of trust building. But the result is it empowers the region, the workers, or the result is highly impactful today. I believe today partnership and genuine collaboration are the new normal in today's mission. So today, if we are to be effective in the missional world, partnership, collaboration are so crucial. Those are the new normal that we need to work in partnership. I understand that we are working in partnership, but sometimes I find that many of our partnership is one-sided. Most of our partnership is very much one-sided, not balanced, beneficial to both the parties. And there is also the lack of partnership spirit today in the mission world. Today, even in our context, sometimes it's also very challenging if you think of partnership. Of course, here we have different tribes, different churches coming under NMM, working together. Yes, in some areas, it seems like we are working in a good partnership. But in some area, it's interesting to see that we are not able to really get into a partnership. We're so much into our own mission. And there are areas that we can even partner together. There are areas that we can even share our tools together, our expertise together. There are areas that we can help one another. But sometimes I think we are still lacking in this partnership. And I believe that if we have to go to the next level of our mission work, today if we have to be more effective, even into the mission field, I think partnership needs to be a model where we all can get involved, working together. But I still go back to, if we have a clear vision, if our vision is the heavenly vision, if we are not stuck with our personal vision or with our corporate vision, if we can go beyond that, I think partnership, we can see the impact of partnership. But sometimes we are stuck because we are so much into our own vision or in our own ministries, in our own mission. I think today we need to move beyond that. I think it says, Nexus, it says, the Great Commission is too big for anyone to accomplish alone and too important not to try to do together. I think it's so important that, if we have to go to the next level of doing mission, we need to focus on the partnership. Today we are reaching 150 years of Christianity. We have been in the mission field for so long, but it's also important that we need to think of the next step, the next level, where it needs the cooperation, the collaboration of different mission agencies, sponsoring bodies, and mission workers to really move ahead. Lastly, this is the last, a holistic approach to mission. Yes, looking at the context, today in the context that we are involved, most of the contexts are struggling, poor people, difficult situation. Therefore, without a holistic approach, it is not easy to reach out to the people in the mission today. But there are some of the approach that we are still comfortable, and we are still continue to do that, especially the traditional approach. When I say traditional approach, I'm thinking of sponsor a missionary, send them to the mission field, once in a while go and visit them, and that's all, nothing much. Of course, we are sending them to the mission field. But I think, as I said, mission field is the church, and the mission field is husband and wife. It's two sides of the same coin. I think it's so important today, the church really have to get involved. Of course, sponsoring is one area. There are so many areas that the church need to get involved. Because today, when you look at the mission field, I don't know whether I'm right in saying that sometimes mission field is like parenting, but it's almost like single mom parenting, single mom parenting. Because the involvement, there is a heavy dependence on the missionaries. But the church have a big role to play, but there is less involvement into the mission. Why I say that? Today in the mission field, the missionary as a person sometimes he's a pastor, sometimes he's like a man, sometimes he plays the role of the mother, sometimes he plays the role of the youth, he plays the role of the kids. He will play every kind of roles. And even the role of even the deacon, you play all the roles, and we see that model is not very healthy. But I believe that today, if the church, as we are sponsoring the missionaries, I think the whole church need to get involved into mission. We need to disciple the whole church to get involved into the mission. The youth group, the women group, the men's group, the deacon group. If all this church get involved behind the missionaries, we'll see a healthy church. We'll see a healthy mission. But I think, I don't know, somehow we are so used to follow this trend that we sponsor the missionaries. Only once in a while we come and we go and help them. I think, but we have got more than that. Apart from prayer and resources, I think we need to really, because when you come, they will see what is the role of a deacon. If the deacon comes and gives some training, when the youth come and give some, come and do some training with the youth, and when they see the mothers come and doing training and sharing with them what is all about the women ministry, I think the impact is always there. Why I say that? Okay. Let's say even our Rengma mission, 10 years ago, we were following that tradition. Sponsor the missionaries, once in a while we go and visit them. But the impact is not much. We were able to plant only very few churches. Maybe about 10 churches within 10 years, hardly. But I think the moment we get involved into a holistic approach or integral approach, where all the church started getting involved into their own mission work, we see within 10 years, from 10 churches to 100 churches, the impact of holistic approach, the impact of integral mission. But still then, I think we still have to improve a lot. Even our Rengma mission, we still have to improve a lot. There are so many areas that we still have to grow. But I think there is a difference between the traditional approach and the holistic approach. I believe that, it's because of God's plan, today the church exists. And the church exists to fulfill the plan of God. Therefore, if we think of mission should be the heartbeat of the church. But sometimes I think today the church and the sponsoring body, of course, church are so much involved in so many other things, which are also important. But if you look from God's perspective, today the challenges is the church also need to more focus, the sponsoring bodies need to get more involved along with the mission. And I believe there will be more greater impact because the church exists because of God's mission. And the church exists to fulfill God's mission. And therefore, I think as a sponsoring body, the church, that should be the heartbeat of the church. Not just one department, not just one area. Because if you look in the early church, I'm talking from the early Acts chapter 2 verse 40 to 45. If you look from the early church perspective, the entire church involved in the work of God. Disciples, the believers, all of them were involved in terms of giving, in terms of praying, in terms of witnessing. The entire church got involved into the mission. I think we have to come back to the basic, where the early church, the whole church got involved into the mission world. Finally, relevant approach into this mission. It's not enough, mission workers, just to have a theological degree. It's not enough today to be effective in our mission world. I think it's important today we need to be equipped even with some vocational or with some skills. Today in those kind of restriction situation, it's sometimes difficult to call ourselves just as a missionary openly. And I think today in this kind of situation, it's also important that we need to go beyond even our theological degree and get involved into different kind of skills which we can use today into the mission world. And today, if we think of mission, we should be thinking in terms of tent making. We should be recruiting not only those theologically trained people. Today we need committed, secular people who are professional, maybe engineer, doctor, teacher, or even lawyer, today I think the whole we need so many different kind of profession today in the mission field, because there are some area that as a missionaries, as a theologically just trained people, we are not able to go in. But as a medical, or maybe as a different profession, as a teacher, there are so many areas that we can still be more effective in some of the places today. So we need to be thinking of tent making. And today I think the world is even focusing on business and mission. Business, I think it's not a wrong thing. I don't know, in our Nagaland context, sometimes we see business as in a different thing. But if it's an honest business, if it's something, a business that is fair enough, and if that business can even strengthen the mission work, and through that business, if we can still reach out to the people, I think today we need to look mission workers not only from a theologically trained perspective, but we need to think of recruiting even from different professions to the mission field today. And that's where I think we can be more effective today into this mission. No doubt that's a big role as a theologically trained people, but we should not stuck with that. I think we are thinking about the next level. We are thinking about some of the challenges that we are facing. Therefore, I think we need to also open to those kind of an avenue today in letting many of our younger generation today to get involved into the mission world. So my concluding remark is the harvest can be achieved when the workers and when the ministries are in tune with the vision of God. Therefore, the mission enterprise should work towards clear vision and must have a competent visionaries. And mission workers, we must have those basic ingredients. We must develop those leadership qualities. And we also need to know our context and set a goal to accomplish that vision. And the ministry, there are so many kind of ministry, but the main focus of our ministry should be making discipleship through teamwork, partnership, and holistic approach. Then I believe we can do more greater work today in our mission work. God bless you. Thank you.